different sport and rec and different organizations across the city that participate in the council. We did have really good representation. I think we had 13 on the last call. Today in the follow-up, we're expecting maybe between 8 to 10. Some people got what they needed out of the last call, and some people are really eager to dive into today's topic. So it was very, very well represented.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any questions for Dennis? Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks, Heather. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Dennis.
Hello.
Just a couple questions. We put out a survey, our GAPS assessment group, and I'm wondering if you looked at that survey and if you felt that there was any either relevant information from your own session that might add some good information along the same lines to our survey, or if you think there's a further opportunity to discuss with your members some of those themes in our survey.
Yeah, the survey was distributed to everybody that was on our call. I'm not sure how many filled it out. I myself had not looked at it because I'm not representing an individual sport or rec. But that's a good point. I should probably look at the survey and see if there's talking points that we could bring up in our call specifically. So I'll have a look at that after the call today.
Thank you. And by the way, I think maybe a couple of your members did participate in the survey.
Oh, perfect. Good,
yeah.
Good. I know there was interest, so.
Any further questions? Dennis, would you be able to provide us a summary, or would you be willing to come with a follow-up just to give us an update once you're finished going through this process?
Sure, I can send you my notes from the last meeting, and then after today's call, I can do the same. So.
Great.
Okay. Did you want me to stay on this meeting, or am I okay to drop off?
It's up to you. If you have time and want to sit in, feel free.
I do have about another 15.
Prep for your meeting, then I can give you an update at a later date.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good till about 10:30, so I'll drop off at that point.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time to prepare for us today. And I look forward to hearing further updates with regards to the council. And I find it really interesting with regards to that consistency piece. And I think you're right. It provides that confidence that everyone across the board is doing the same things. And then there's a few sport specific decisions. So I think that's a great piece to have. And it'd be interesting for us to hear what that is as we move forward, what that blanketed statement will be.
Yeah, it is an interesting topic because there's so many different factors involved. Some of the different sports and rec providers have their own guidelines passed down if they're a provincial or federal sport, so they have to follow those, and are those conflicting between sports? And then you've got, health unit guidelines, you've got city guidelines, so it's not an easy thing to create consistency across the board. So we're trying to do our best there. But yes, thank you for having me on the call today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Moving on to item
Heather,
7.
Heather,
the funding.
can I just jump in for a sec? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Rod.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to highlight we had an issue with the live streaming for the first part of the meeting. Just in case anybody is watching, if I could I'll just catch people up briefly that the agenda, the first point in the agenda, the adoption of the agenda was done as printed, and the previous meeting minutes were approved as per the agenda. Just want to catch up if anybody's watching, and no business arising from the minutes was discussed. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to catch people up if they're watching and pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Rod. So item 7 is the funding opportunities working group update. So I can provide that update. We have not had a meeting since the last task force meeting. We are reviewing and currently have the documents to review the city funding opportunities. And due to vacations, We aren't able to meet till later on into September. We do have our next meeting scheduled on September 17th. So at that point, we'll be meeting to discuss the any recommendations that we have to put forth to council with regards to the city-specific funding opportunities. We are still working on the spreadsheet with a list of other funding related opportunities. And I'm hoping to get to that again today, just to review it again before I depart on a week and a half away. And we can see where that is. So when we meet on the 17th, we're able to get that out. And we're also waiting for more of the summary and in-depth conversations with the gaps analysis group, as we don't know what recommendations are required. We don't know what's needed from the community until we have that review. So I know that the initial responses have been sent over. So Amy and I might connect prior to the meeting on the 17th so that I can get a better grasp of what the community is looking for, so we know where to direct our recommendations. So we're sort of in a holding pattern at this point, just waiting for vacations and some of the summary responses. To make a motion to take in that report, did anyone else from the funding application, from the funding opportunities group want to add anything to that? I just see Councillor Dunn, but I see he's a bit busy right now. So I'll just put it forth. That's okay. So I'd like to make the motion to approve the funding opportunities working group report as presented. Is there a mover? Yes, Rod. Councillor Ashmore, seconder. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there all opposed? Anybody opposed? All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Motion carried. I will look to Amy for the gaps assessment working group report.
Thank you. Actually, Marina is going to make the report because she is the chair of the working group. So I'm off to Marina.
Okay, so first of all, thank you to Brenda for supporting the survey, and to Amy and Pam and Linda for helping me to follow up with people on our list to make sure that we had a good response rate. We had a total of 48 respondents, which, given that we reached out to about 130 groups, is over 35%. So for a survey with a fairly quick turnaround time, I think that's actually an excellent response rate. I found it really interesting that when you look at the organizations, they seem to be concentrated on the low and high end of size, both in employees and the clients they served. So out of the 48 respondents, 12 of them, so the highest number, said they had no employees, which was followed by 10 who said they had between 20 and 49, and 9 who had more than 100 employees. So very much at the low and the high end were the highest responses. The same is true for the number of clients that are normally served. So the highest number of respondents was 13 who said that they had between 1 and 149 clients. And then it goes right over to 10 respondents who said they had between 1,000 and 4,999. And third were 5,000 or more with 9 respondents. So again, it went from one end to the other with the least number of respondents in the middle. As far as the question about human resource challenges, so the question was, what human resource challenges is your agency facing as a result of COVID? The number one response was 21 responses for health and mental well-being supports for staff, followed closely by 20 who said staff are anxious about returning to work based on the continued health threat of COVID. So both of those were basically tied. As far as the experiences with implementing public health measures within their organization. It was nice to see that a total of 37 respondents, so a vast majority, felt that they either agree or definitely agree that the guidelines from the health unit were easy to understand. So that's good to know. I'd be very concerned if they didn't feel that it was. As far as accessing appropriate PPEs, personal protective equipment, 27 respondents, so well over half, said that they agree or definitely agree that they can easily access PPEs. When it came to whether the cost is reasonable, we were more in the middle. So there was 12 who somewhat agreed, 12 who neither agreed or disagreed, and then 7 and 10, so 17 either disagreed or definitely disagreed that the cost was reasonable, which I don't think is surprising. You know, depending on the amount of PPEs that you're purchasing and obviously the size of the agency, you know, it can be quite cost prohibitive. As far as the costs of office infrastructure reconfiguration, the majority said that they neither agree or disagree that costs were reasonable. And I can only assume that that's because they didn't actually have a huge amount of infrastructure that they needed to address. So 19 respondents said that they neither agree nor disagree. And 26 either agreed or strongly agreed that they have the resources available to ensure public health measures are implemented long-term. So, which was good. As far as funding impact, it was not surprising that 19 of the respondents said that their revenue has decreased. 11 said it has stayed the same, and 14 actually said it increased. So a fair number, and I'm assuming that's that they're taking advantage of some of the opportunities out there. As far as decreases, 17 said that the #1 decrease was in fundraising events, not surprising given that most of them have been canceled. 11 decreased with private donors, and 10 in user fees. As far as increases, not surprisingly, 14 had increases due to government funding. It kind of makes sense. But 8 also said that they had increased private donors, so which I found a little bit surprising and pleasantly surprising that people are stepping up and increasing their donations to support the agencies in our community. That's it. Any questions?
Can I add to Marina's report as well, Heather?
Yes.
So also in the report, so people will remember that there were a lot of survey responses where people had to give verbal, like write out their responses. So there's a lot of information in there. Brenda sent us the summary on Friday at the end of the day, and I've just scanned through myself, but there is a lot of information there that I think will really be helpful for, so for the GAPS assessment group to go through, sift through, see if there's some common themes. And then I think we would be happy to bring that forward to the funding working group. But I will say on my first pass through that, yes, there will be some suggestions we have for the funding working group, but there will be also things that have no relation to funding. So, so one thing that the task force may need to think about is, so if there are issues that our agencies are facing that aren't funding related, what is our plan forward? Do we want that information to come to the full task force? Or is there some other mechanism that we may wish to bring that ahead? And if I can, while we've got most people on the Zoom as well, it would be great if the GAPS assessment group could respond to Marina's email this morning about a next meeting. So just while we've got everybody's attention. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rod.
Hi. Just just looking at that, I haven't had a chance to go through the full comments, but as Amy was saying, there's quite a few other things there. So I think that would be a good idea if we compile them or somewhat categorize them and then bring them back to probably this group, just to see, like you said, in terms of what that scope is or where we take them, because we have been hearing sort of broader sort of questions or concerns from other groups, other sectors, and just how we take that forward. And the timing of the task force meetings, because we're meeting twice a month right now, or roughly every 2 weeks with the holidays. It's probably best to bring it back here.
Any other questions or comments? No, I'll turn it back over to Heather.
Thanks so much, Marina, for your, go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, Heather, what do you feel is the best way to get your group, the working group, the funding working group, the information? So your next meeting isn't until September 17th. Do you want, like, we can, I don't think there's any issue with us giving this full survey either, right? To your group, we can share the survey results with your group.
Yes, I did receive the survey results and I can share them with our group, and we can go through. If your group is going to go through and do an evaluation, then if you want to provide that summary in addition to just the responses, then that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Dunn.
I guess the big question that we're going to have to eventually answer is once we determine what our needs are, and we're getting there, is how we're going to go about channeling money into various organizations. Is the city going to be assisting, and maybe Rod can answer this, in a request type of format? Like, we know we have money available. We've established that. We've now established that we have some needs. I just don't know how we're going to go and bring those two together and actually flow money through. So I think that's probably the next big thing on our plate. And maybe Rod might want to jump in, and if he's got any kind of ideas how he might flow money.
Not specifically. I think in terms of the like you said, identifying what the needs are and the gaps, and sort of categorizing where they fall and what's available for the recommendations, because we don't have, well, the task force itself doesn't have any authority around direction, but in terms of the recommendations to council, I think that was the intent. So the various pots, once those are identified, or sources of the funding, we don't really know. I'm not, off the top of my head, not familiar with what the restrictions are on those. There's some that have restrictions, some that are more open. So that'll be, I think, be part of that prioritizing of the needs and identification of the different streams. The timing is key in terms of based on council recommendations to council and the council meetings. But if we're looking at, said you're the next meeting of the funding task force, the 17th. If we're looking at October, taking something forward, it gives a little bit of time, but not a lot right there. But, it's just coordinating those.
Do we have somebody maybe that's got experience? Like with the city money, the process is relatively simple. Whatever rules the city makes, the city can change. So as far as city money goes, that part of the process is relatively simple, especially seeing as we have 4 councillors sitting on this this task force. If we can get us all, if we're all on the same page, it becomes a relatively straightforward process. The grants that are available through other entities, I have no idea. I don't know. Do we have somebody with experience and background in grant writing that may assist these organizations? Or are we just going to say, these are areas where you can find funding, good luck with your application? So that's where I'm starting to I'm trying to figure this out.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. I see your hand, Amy, and just to give a quick report, and then I'll go to Amy. I did reach out to Craig Shanks at the city today just to have a quick, I wanted to just ask him, because of the timing, did he think it was advantageous to put out anything with regards to the chess fund, as the application is due the end of October. So most organizations start planning and doing that application process in September. So I am going to reach out to him because of the timing. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is that we're not able to meet until the 17th. And what does that look like within the bigger picture? So I will get back to the funding working group about that, so we can see what that looks like. And then I'll also send the survey results as well as the summary from Amy and Marina and their group, who will send that. Amy will speak to the other piece with regards to the other entities and funding available. I know she's had a conversation, so I'll pass it over to Amy.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, this came, and I think Councillor Dunn was on some of these email exchanges with the Fenland Falls Senior Club, which was, they put in, they just did an email exchange, not in the survey. They asked if they could have some assistance in preparing a grant for the Ontario Trillium Foundation. So it generated a conversation about that the funding working group may not just be making recommendations about how the city funds should be potentially changed to address current needs, but there might be some other assistance that could be provided for various grant writing experience, I guess. So I did reach out to Rebecca, oh goodness, what's Rebecca's last name? Mustard, thank you. Who is head of economic development, because I was aware that I just remember years ago, economic development hosting grant writing workshops. And so she did confirm that they have the ability to do that and would be happy to step up for that type of assistance. It doesn't apply really to the Ontario Trillium Foundation because the deadline is September 2nd. So in terms of the Fenland Falls Senior Club, my recommendation was that they book a meeting with an advisor for OTF, which is always, with OTF anyway, they make their advisors available for consultation and just preparation for your grants. And so that's always the best way to go, because OTF is pretty specific in terms of what they're looking for. But Rebecca agreed that that there was value definitely in providing some training and expertise for organizations in writing grants for provincial or federal funds. And so they would be happy to do that. So I don't know if we want to wait until after the September 17th meeting. I mean, it seems like a fairly straightforward request that this task force could put into economic development to see if they could begin putting in place the steps in order to offer that grant writing workshop if everybody agrees.
I certainly agree with that idea. I think it's a great idea. As far as the Lindsay Chess Fund goes, and that's the only one I can speak on behalf of, they've already made a decision that they're not going to be doing grants this year, so that money will be available for our needs. So they're not going to be doing now. We can change the rules as far as right now, the way the rules are set up. It's for capital expenses only. Council certainly has the authority to change that, and the Lindsay Chess Fund has made that recommendation to council that it goes that way. So as far as capital, we've told our partners out there that we're not accepting applications for capital, and we are recommending to council that the funds that we do have available be spent to help the pandemic relief. So that's where the Lindsay Chess Fund is in the argument. So we do have a bit of time there. But they have made that recommendation to council.
Thank you for the update, Amy, and Councillor Dunn as well. Penny, did you want to give an update about the workshop that you've organized for OTF in our community? She just may have stepped off of. So the United Way has organized a workshop specific to the upcoming Resilience Fund with regards to OTF. So helping any organization that is interested in applying. There's a facilitated meeting, so OTF can go through the application process and explain what they're looking for and what needs to be included, and to go through that, as OTF applications are quite in depth. So through the United Way, they're having a facilitated training session, very much like the one-on-one calls that Amy was talking about. Thank you to the United Way for organizing that to meet the September deadline. And I believe there's 2 intakes for that Resilience Fund. So if they're not able to meet the first one, they'll have that initial overview of what the grant is all about, so they can help prepare for the second one. So that support is there specific to OTF. There are federal funds and provincial funds, as well as foundations that are out there, and they're all their own entities. And yes, a grant writing workshop would be very helpful. So unless there's any significant issues, I think what we could do is reach out as a task force and request the Economic Development Department to start planning some of those workshops as we start leading into the fall. And I would think maybe 2 or 3 would be helpful. Everyone's schedule is a bit different. And we can talk, and Amy and I can work with the ECDev department on what that might look like and that sort of thing. We can also share some of the survey results if they're applicable, so they know the content of what the organizations are looking for. Does that sound okay, Amy?
Yeah, I think maybe we should formalize it with a motion, Heather.
Okay.
So I'm happy to move that the task force is recommending that the Economic Development Department of the City of Kawartha Lakes organize and facilitate grant writing workshops to meet the needs of the community at this time as a result of pandemic relief or something like that. Sorry.
That's a great motion. On the fly. Thank you. Thank you for the motion, Amy. Would anyone like to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Richardson can second. Is there any further discussion regarding this motion put on the table? No further discussion then. All opposed? Seeing none, all in favor, I assume? Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Amy, for putting the motion forward.
Just a quick question to Rod. Can you flow that through to council so council can approve it, so the paperwork's done, so that ECDev can charge it to the right spot?
Yeah, I've got I'll be doing an update memo to council following this meeting for next week's committee of the whole. Are you looking? I don't think council would need to do a specific resolution to direct it.
Okay.
But I could do that if you like. But I believe in talking with the discussions last week with Rebecca Mustard, I think there was willingness to work that in. They've done them in the past, so
that's fine.
Follow up on that.
Thank you, Rod, for getting that information out there. Yes, Brenda.
I just wanted to follow that up by saying that we've got the Jumping Kawartha Lakes portal. So we have our agency portal. We now have 48 organizations that have registered for that portal. So it might be a great place for us to start sharing opportunities. So the United Way session, the grant writing session, any grants that people know about, any services that might change. And this is organization to organization. So perhaps we could get people partnering or sharing resources where possible. We also have the opportunity for a public portal with Jump In for this task force. So if there are things and information that we want to get out to the public, we can use it for that as well.
Thank you for that reminder. It's always good to know the resources out there to get the information to those in need. I'm just making a note there of that. Is there anything further from the GAPS Assessment Working Group? Holly, I'm sorry, can you remind me if we motion the acceptance of that report?
No, only that motion, but not the report.
Okay,
I'll make that motion, Heather.
thank you. Do we have a mover? Pam, thank you. Seconder, Linda? Any discussion? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to number 9, new business. Rod, were you going to speak to the Resilient Community Fund?
Like I said, I just noted that on there, and we probably covered it off all right. Just to get it on the agenda for on the record, just to the information and the link to the application information. I think we've covered it off. The deadline's October or September 2nd for the first intake, and December 2nd for the second intake. So just
Okay.
That's just to get that on the noted in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Brenda, have you received any information? Would you like me to put together something with regards to OTF and the upcoming United Way workshop? I can put something quickly together and you can push that out.
That would be great. Thank you.
Rod, will you be speaking to the community safety and well-being plan?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the task force. Actually make a request to the task force to endorse. The city is going back. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my document to reference here. Back in 2019, the province, it's actually a part of the Police Services Act, but it was done to a requirement that all municipalities in Ontario, single-tier municipalities, so that includes Kawartha Lakes, were mandated by the province to develop a community safety and well-being plan. So these plans were originally to be developed for adoption by councils before January 1st of 2021. It's basically the end of this year. With the pandemic earlier this year, the province announced fairly early that they were extending that deadline. There isn't a specific deadline news date set other than it's been extended, likely by the end of 2021, but like I said, there's no set date right now. So in discussions when this task force was first set up following the, based on the pandemic, it was a recommendation, I believe, from the city standpoint, administration, that the safety and well-being plan for the community could align somewhat to the community pandemic recovery, largely based on the members, the groups that are involved are very, very much aligned with what a safety and well-being plan would be as well. And our goal is to still to develop a plan. We don't have that end of year deadline, but over the next probably 6 to 8 months for a recommendation for council approval, and that we could leverage the task force as an avenue to work on this and create in essence another working group specific to the safety and well-being plan. So the plan itself, the goals of it is to just read from the document on my other screen here, is to achieve a sustainable community where everyone feels safe, has a sense of belonging, opportunities to participate, and where individuals and families are able to meet their needs for education, healthcare, food, housing, income, social and cultural expression. So again, very much aligned with the work we're doing. The guidelines from the ministry, from the province, is actually under the Ministry of the Solicitor General, are very specific in terms of who's an advisory group, the membership even of that advisory group, what sectors they must come from. For example, it identifies at least one person who represents the local health integration network or an entity that provides physical and mental health services, a representative from educational services, from social services in the community, from children and youth services, custodial services for youth and children, and an employee of the municipality or a member of council. So as a minimum, it requires those people. So what we were hoping to do is, if with the endorsement of the task force, is create another working group to, in essence, become that advisory committee. The impact on the task force really would be minimal. That group will work fairly independently towards the safety and well-being plan, and we would use just this task force for brief updates and the link between the working group and council in the end. Ultimately, that advisory group or working group will present it to council under the guise of the task force. So if that was appropriate, like I said, I don't believe it'll have significant impact on the work of this task force or add more work to it. A number of the people here may be invited or recommended to participate in that advisory committee as well for the plan, just based on the nature of our work. But the task force itself will have minimal direct involvement in that. I'm happy to answer any questions, and ultimately I'm just looking for endorsement of the task force to create a working group to take on that community and safety wellbeing advisory committee role. Thanks.
Councillor Dunn?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, and when you're putting your task force together, I'd be more than happy to volunteer either as a CMHA rep or as a counselor, either way.
Is there a mover?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay, sorry. Seconder, Councillor Elmsley. Is there any further discussion at this point about this? Does anyone want to add anything? See no discussion, all opposed? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, it's carried.
Thank you.
So is there, other than Councillor Dunn, at this point, is there anyone that would like to express an interest in participating in the new working group? Councillor Elmsley, Marina, Linda Needham. I'm going slow for Holly. Pam Stuckless, and Barb Condy.
And Heather, I'm not sure if I'm the right person, but I think the Boys and Girls Club would be happy to have a representative, but it might be best be our Director of Operations, Chris Boroman, potentially. Okay.
We'll put Boys and Girls Club, and you can follow up with who will be the representative. Penny, did you want to express any interest? I know you're on mute on your phone. Maybe we can follow up with her later. I'll send her a quick email just to reach out, just to hear more about it if, in the event she didn't, and to express her interest. Alrighty, thank you so much, Rod. Moving on to item number 10, the roundtable discussion. Is there anything anyone would like to put on the table for us as a group to collectively discuss? Go ahead, Amy, and then Councillor Elmsley.
Thanks, Heather. So I wanted to just put as a topic of discussion today about the arts and culture community. So it had started to occur to me that this group, or rather the funding working group through us, will be bringing forward recommendations around some of the city funding programs. And our arts and culture community, and potentially others that I'm not thinking of right now, would normally apply to a lot of those different funding programs. And so I reached out to, this was the initial reason I reached out to Rebecca Mustard, because arts and culture does come in under economic development. And I just wanted to know if the other task force was engaging with the arts and culture community. And she did confirm that they were definitely a sector that was identified for the other task force. And so there'd been some outreach to the arts and culture community. But she also confirmed that there would not be any specific recommendations based on, like, specifically for arts and culture that would come from the economic task force. So we had a little conversation about that. And I reached out to Rod, or I reached out to Heather and Rod and a few others about whether we should be expanding our survey to arts and culture. And the feeling was, no, our mandate was clear that, you know, and arts and culture wasn't part of that mandate. I've had some further conversations as well with the cultural, I can't recall Donna Goodwin's title, but she's in charge of arts, culture, and heritage within economic development. And so it's tricky. Arts and culture sort of falls in, kind of gets caught in the middle, I think, sometimes. They're part in our strategic plan, or the city's strategic plan. They're under quality of life, and social infrastructure is there as well. So it's, there's a list of things, but that includes social infrastructure, recreation, and then culture and heritage. And so arts and culture isn't under the vibrant economy theme in our strategic plan, where most of those other sectors that the economic task force is looking at would be. They would be in the vibrant economy. And then in the community safety and well-being plan, culture is also there under social infrastructure. So it sometimes gets caught, like arts and culture is, it can be a big part of the economy, of course, can be a big economic sector, connected with tourism and everything else, but also often has a lot of nonprofits that are, really it is part of quality of life, and what they're offering to our community is more in the quality of life area. We also know from not our local surveys, but certainly if you look provincially and nationally, that arts and culture organizations have been really hard hit by the pandemic because of the zero events in the beginning. And so, if we think about our Academy Theatre or other organizations, they have been really severely impacted. So what I thought I'd love to have, if we could have a discussion about it. One thought I had was that perhaps as the funding task force is looking at their recommendations, maybe there's a way to connect with the economic task force to learn what, if anything, they learned from their consultation with the arts and culture community that might have an impact on our funding recommendations, or maybe maybe there's a better way to connect the two. But I just wanted to share that as just to see what other people thought about the best way. I just would hate to see changes made to city funding programs that will impact our arts and culture community without any insight into their needs and the current gaps they're currently facing. So there's for throwing that out onto the table for discussion.
Thank you, Amy. It is a good point to bring up. We want to ensure we capture the whole community. Did anyone want to add on to that or ask any questions or any comments?
I have a comment, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Ashmore.
Yeah, just a couple things here. Give an example of the arts and culture, the Lakeview Arts Barn. They engaged in a project, and they have another source of income. They reached out to philanthropy, and this particular couple has donated a certain amount of money, and it's a 50-50 partnership. So they've raised, their goal is to raise 200,000, but they've raised, I think, 30,000 or 40,000 so far. So they've done it on their own, creatively, to find a way to survive their business, and it's really been a good initiative for them and a good example of how to do it. The Lakeview Arts Barn. So just wanted to mention how they're doing it. Just a couple of other things there. The spreadsheet. Would Heather or Amy, if you don't mind, just resending the spreadsheet of all the funding sources, just so we have that.
I can do that. Yes.
Yeah. And one thing, like, I'm kind of hesitant setting up another task force. Like, you know, we're all part of the pandemic recovery task force, and we have a funding working group. We have a gaps assessment group, but now we're going to set up another group, a community safety and well-being plan. Are we kind of diluting ourselves here, our efforts, our work, you know, and setting up another group? Because, you know, we're trying our best to, you know, to put these groups together, the working group, the gaps assessment, the funding. I just feel that right now, I think we've got enough on our plate right now to be starting another group. I mean, the provincial government says we don't have to have this done for a while. Just my thoughts. I think we should just concentrate on what we're doing now instead of trying to get another group going within the group. Just my 2 cents, I guess.
Rod, did you want to add any comment back?
Sure. On the community safety well-being plan, they said there's an alignment with the task force because a similar focus, but really it will be independent of the task force, just from an operational standpoint. It's just for an alignment of ease. As I mentioned, we do have to do one way or the other, whether it was part of the task force or otherwise. There's not a set deadline, but we do need to get it started. I don't expect there to be an impact in terms of the work of the task force. Once it is going, it would really just be independent. But just that alignment standpoint, we're linking it there. If it was the task force's wish to not have it part of that, we would still be going ahead with the safety and well-being plan advisory group as well. We would just be as a separate entity. Like the timing, I said we'll be starting this fall. We'll probably be aiming to do it through the fall, starting through the fall and into probably realistically the first half of next year. There's a requirement around engagement processes and things like that really won't have an impact on the task force, but we will have to follow those that framework from the province to get to completion of that plan. Like I said, probably in by the end of spring of next year.
Okay, thanks.
To get back to, thank you, Rod, and thank you, Councillor Ashmore, for the discussion. To get back to Amy's arts and culture discussion, is there anything anyone else would like to add to that? I'll reach out directly to Amy and have a quick conversation from the Funding Opportunities Working Group, and I can get the connection and have a quick discussion with the FDEV staff person that Amy had indicated, and gather in that information as well, so that it can be reviewed as we make our recommendations. Unless there's anything else, Councillor Elmsley also wanted to add something to the roundtable discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering what happens. Are we now only going to concern ourselves with the 48 respondents to the survey? And what happens to the other 80 some odd folks that, or groups that were identified? Are we still considering their needs and wants? And if so, how do we do that? Or are we really concentrating on the 48 that responded to the survey?
Go ahead, Marina.
So I would say that no, we're absolutely hoping to focus on all the groups out there, whether they responded or not. I think the responses just provide a baseline to try and gauge what the needs are, right? I think you can generally extrapolate that if some people have said this, it would apply to others as well. That being said, obviously, if they didn't respond to the survey and they had needs or challenges that were not identified by one of the respondents, we can't, you know, we did follow up several times with them. So if they don't reach out to tell us that, we aren't mind readers. So, but hopefully by extrapolating on the responses we do have, we will cover all the bases.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I think that there may be people who either missed the opportunity or for one reason or another weren't able to do it. And I think it's important that, you know, we keep ourselves open. And I think that, you know, I'll just say that in terms of the arts and culture community as well, I think that there are many places where the arts and culture community cross over to other community groups. And so including them in some way, shape, or form is probably a good thing as well. And we don't want to miss out on a segment and then have to come back and pick them up and reinvent the wheel. So, you know, using a trite expression, I think we need to have a big tent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elmsley. I know with the survey that was circulated around, all of us sent it out to our own networks and organizations that we know. And I think as long as we continue to reach out as best that we can, it'll be difficult to capture absolutely everybody. As Marina said, we put it out there, it's up to them to respond. We have shared the information. But as long as we continue to keep that door open and pass along that information and the opportunity to provide input along the way, then we can pick them up and they can provide whatever input that's relevant for them. So as long as we all continue to do that and we can keep building that, and also getting those who haven't already responded to register with the Jump In would be really ideal. It's a direct conduit to be able to talk with them and push out information that they can then choose what they do with it. So if you know of any group that didn't participate in the first initial survey but should be on that, then encourage them to sign up for the Jump In through our page on the city website, so that they're able to receive the information more quickly without it coming, you know, through other channels. They can get it directly from us. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add on the roundtable discussion? Go ahead, Amy.
It just occurred to me. So we do have a summary of the survey questions that is open to the, or could be appropriate for public distribution, because it doesn't identify the individual organizations. Brenda was great to send us that this morning. So so should we be, so I guess two questions. One, at least one person asked if we were going to share the survey results, at least one respondent. So question one, should we send that public survey summary back to the people who participated, those 48? And two, should we also publish that on our little page on the city website? And is there a, you know, are there benefits to communicating that would maybe raise awareness about what we're doing and get more of these other organizations more involved?
Those are two really great suggestions, Amy. I think we could consider both. Did anyone have a further? Yes, Linda.
Yeah, just very quickly, I would agree on both of those counts that we should try to make that available. I think that would raise some awareness, but I think because when people invest their time in doing that kind of survey, they want to know what the results are. And I think it also holds us, it takes us to that level of accountability around what are we going to be doing moving forward as well.
Thank you, Linda. Councillor Elmsley.
Thank you. I was just wondering if Brenda had any comments about how easy that might be to do, or if there are any considerations that make it not something that we should do.
We can absolutely do that. I can have it done in about 5 minutes. I also have the ability to send a newsletter, email type thing directly to those people who responded. So I can work with Amy and Heather to come up with a blurb for that and send it out to all the people who responded directly, so they get that through Jumpin. And then we can draft a press release with that survey summary and send that out to the media. So that's talking about the results of the survey, but also what the plans of the task force are once they sort through all of the answers. So we'll be specific that we aren't sharing the entire results of the survey, but those questions that were closed, not the open-ended ones, and that the working group is going through those and we'll have further recommendations to present to council.
Thank you. Given that, I give you a motion that we take Amy's suggestion and ask Brenda to do as she suggested in circulating it. So I'll give you that motion if you like.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson was up there quick with a second.
I'm in full agreement with this entire plan moving forward, and I believe covering off all different aspects right now is just going to, like you said, create a better awareness out there. So I'm seconding the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? I would like to add to the discussion piece, Brenda, if you could please put an explicit invitation for those who have yet to participate, or just to encourage them to register with Jumpin, so we're able to start to grow that list that we have the direct contact to. Any other points of discussion on the motion? All opposed? All in favor? Thank you, motion carried. Thank you, Amy and Councillor Elmsley. Very good points. I think Amy and I should connect with Brenda about what our Jumpin page and how we can utilize it a little bit more and what information we should put on, just so then we have a little bit of a, just as that reminder and a prompt for us to consider to use that on an ongoing basis. I know it's a great resource, and thank you, Brenda, for always bringing it back to our attention. Is there any other topics that we'd like to put onto the roundtable discussion?
Just, sorry.
Yep, go ahead, Rod.
I'm just going to note back earlier during the pandemic on, I know there's a number of websites around. The city has the one page around various community resources available. sort of links to, under the COVID information page, links to various services in the community, local and provincial or federal. We have been maintaining that mostly. It's calmed down the last couple of months, the volume of changes, but just with changes around on the income side, income security with the changes coming to CERB, the new EI programs, the Canada Recovery Benefits, and the others being established over the next little while or proposed. We should try to maintain those links in there as well. And if anybody's seen anything in terms of gaps there, just in terms of what we should be updating on that website, or you see on others, we can certainly, well, we, by saying we, it's Brenda who usually does that, but we are trying to keep that up to date around resources for anyone in the public or the community who is looking for specific links to information, services, or funding as well. So, thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder to for all of us to check that page and just make any alert of any inaccuracies. Moving on to item 11, is there any correspondence that needs to be shared? No. Okay. Thank you, Rod. As a reminder, the next meeting is on September 14th at 10 o'clock. It will be through Zoom. Holly will send out the link as we approach the time that our meeting is. Please send any regrets as well. If there's nothing else to add to the meeting, would someone like to adjourn us? Yay, Marina. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for your input and your support with the task force. Have a great day.
Thank you, Heather. Good meeting.
Thanks all.
Thank you.